The next speaker is Raiko Puustusmaa from the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communication. He will speak about a good living environment. Raiko is an expert in housing. He helps to develop measures for housing policies. He is participating in preparing many projects in the upcoming program. Raiko will also speak about, will speak on the screen, but fortunately not from Norway.
Elanikkond ja muutused.
One thing is dwellers and changes. The population is aging, but it's not reducing over the past few years. What we've seen is a change where we have negative birth rate, but the positive migration rate has been exceeding that. A lot of people that have lived in Estonia have returned. At the same time, this positive influence has not had an impact on the growth or reduction of population in different regions. Urbanization is similar to the rest of the world, where Harjumaa and Tallinn, Tartu and surrounding areas, and Pärnu will see people converging there, and therefore most of the areas, in spite of the fact that the general population is growing, but areas become less and less populated. And these shrinking areas cause market failures. It is very clear to see that in many areas, as a result of people no longer willing to live there, there is no demand for real estate, prices have gone down. And that is the reason why Ida-Virumaa or southern Estonia, there are situations where apartments are offered for sale for €1. And this area where market fails is a challenge. How do we guarantee people that have decided to move there or who have decided to stay there? How do you provide a good environment there? How do you provide them with good living conditions? As we look at the amount of new apartments built, the main areas where building happens is where people converge. So most of Estonian regions do not see the building of modern apartment buildings that would have an elevator and modern spatial planning. These apartments are not built at all, or the number of apartments there is very, very limited. A good example, perhaps. There is an example where a number of new apartments were built, but there was a program for rental spaces. And that was birthed for a certain period. And Credex supported local municipalities so they could build rental apartments or reconstruct the existing ones. An excellent example is in Valga. In the center of Valga, there was an empty building, totally unused, and Valga City Council had a very clear goal of rather upgrading or renovating the center of the city rather than building a new one instead. That center of the city has history, it has a story to tell, and people living there have a connection to that building. So the city of Valga decided that the building with lion heads would be reconstructed, and that could be the rental house where new dwellers can come to. The building was totally upgraded, fixed. There are modern living conditions there for people. As we look at Europe, or where is Europe moving to? towards. We are very closely linked to European Commission and their views and projects because we have an impact there. At the same time, the Commission is setting us goals. We know that by 2050, the goal for European Union is there for carbon dioxide, but in the framework of the Green Deal, there is a renovation strategy. It is important that the reconstruction possibility is built into the design of people. So the houses are not only fixed, but they are fixed in a way whereby renovation achieves a certain energy efficiency level. The same applies in European trends is to keep in mind your carbon footprint. In reconstruction, in using building materials, it needs to be as small as possible. It is equally important how do we achieve the renovation goals. To achieve that in the most energy and resource efficient way, how can we make circular economy principles to good use? And there are definitely good solutions like different digital solutions where we can have digitalized designing laser measurements that support and enhance efficient reconstruction. This year, European Commission came up with the fit for purpose principle. So by 2030, we'd reduce greenhouse gases by 50%. The trend is that buildings would be added to the calculation of or the ETS system. One needs to monitor carbon intensity of buildings, and it might have a significant impact on energy, since the energy cost that a building has, it might be taxed, it might become more expensive. So the European Commission has an idea of setting up a special climate foundation, climate fund, to alleviate the results that might befall on certain target groups in the framework of the ETS system. There's also another initiative, the new European Bauhaus, the purpose of which is to bring together different companies all over Europe, different people, communities, everyone who can have a say, who can share their ideas and projects. How do you achieve reconstruction in such a way that it's human-friendly, it's fit for space, it would be suitable and would have the smallest possible carbon impact? The new Bauhaus initiative is looking for innovative projects as well. As we speak about reconstruction in Estonia, how sustainable is it in the context of apartment buildings? Then today we can say the market is border dependent. Yes, that means that we have certain developmental leaps for support measures and technological solutions. But what prevails is that the system, the support schemes, builders and banks, this is a well-developed system and it's stuck there. And the main driver of the system is clients, housing associations that carry out renovation projects. And the main hindrance is sustainability. What kind of building materials are we using? The main question is about price. People always want to curb the cost to have minimum cost and maximum benefit, the best result possible. And when I mentioned where does Europe move to from the viewpoint of the European Commission, then in a Estonian context, all different parties see that the state needs to have a bigger role to lead this transfer to sustainability in the building sector. Let's adopt more materials that have a smaller carbon footprint. Let's support the principles of circular economy and so on. It is good that the building market we have is actually ready and supports environmentally friendly solutions and applies these solutions. And let's say the main challenges that we see as a result of the analysis we've carried out is, on the one hand, lack of depth. Partial works are carried out. And secondly, lack of financial leverage. And that is expressed in market failure areas, which is the majority of Estonia. Owners of real estate don't have the financial capacity, nor do they have an opportunity to get additional financing from private banks to carry out these works in a wholesome or complete way. What are our core principles in the framework or in the context of renovation? There are 4 basic principles. First of all, let's look at the complete picture. The reconstruction market, or where are we today? We see a clear trend that we should more move towards wholesale renovation or reconstruction. That is, reconstructing the whole building or the whole area. Not getting stuck with the building itself, but also the surrounding areas, improving the living conditions of the living environment for people. Alleviating climate change and reducing carbon footprint are important. I've mentioned market failures again and again, regional balance, areas where no new apartment buildings are created. We must provide quality living environment there as well. Quality housing in apartment buildings. They must be energy efficient with lower running costs. And developing technology is an important principle. We must have new solutions on the market as to how to renovate, how to reconstruct. A historic example here that I mentioned, innovation for reconstruction. It is important to support or give support to improving ventilation. Good ambient air is very important for health, but for apartment buildings, it is possible to fix the ventilation system and living conditions get improved, in addition to having the building insulated and heating costs brought down. At the end of last year, there was initiated an element-based renovation of apartment buildings. This picture shows a hostel at Tallinn Technical University. That was the first pilot project. And based on that pilot project, we initiated a bigger one for 4 types of apartment buildings that are the most widely spread in Estonia. And based on that, housing associations who are interested in element-based reconstruction we are testing it in cooperation with wood element house builders. So we're testing that in real life, trying to improve the quality of reconstruction of apartments, since these elements can be built in factories. That seems to be a speedy way of improving insulation. How insulation, windows, and facade solutions are all combined in one element. This year, we initiated a circular economy project. Well, the bidding is underway now to analyze what opportunities are there to take up demolition waste. When we demolish apartment buildings, how can we reuse these materials with the smallest carbon impact? An important thing to mention is the issue of carbon footprint. In order to take it into consideration for new buildings as well as for renovation, we need to have common methodology. And this analysis is underway. An important nuance as we speak about housing reconstruction and financial capacity for there, and instability of support measures. So we are developing a fund, the goal of which is to involve different funds and institutions to provide for a stable fund for support measures. So they would have stable financing for that. It's one of the biggest problems that we have on the market today. Stable financing, availability of support measures. It's especially relevant in market failure areas. To speak about a bigger picture, the living environment, it is one goal for us is to have 2035. There are 5 strategic goals. And as we look at the living environment, this is the Oak of Truth compiled by Statistics Estonia, and it shows different measures and aspects. So satisfaction with their living environment for Estonian people is not 100%. It's different for people living in rural areas, those that live in urban areas, from different regions of the country. So it is important to have a wholesome approach. A living environment, especially the built environment, is seen as a whole. There are different nuances there. And as I mentioned before, joint bids collected for different apartment houses that actually have the same prototype, bicycle parks, car parking, bike lanes, bike lane systems, there is room for development. There have been many analyses carried out by space creation expert group. They analyzed and synthesized spatial planning in Estonia. At the dwelling area, we are compiling a long-term analysis that showed very clearly the main challenges and shortcomings. There are also many developmental needs mapped in the framework of Estonia 35, space that would correspond to the needs of society. And also Estonian Human Development Report that is focused on spatial selections in an urbanized society. It also covered regional aspects of Estonian future. What could this future be like? And as we speak about spatial planning and spatial organization, it all relates to quality of space. It is based on values that were created as a result of this working group on spatial analysis. There are many important aspects identified that seem to be important for reconstruction as well. As we look at the areas of market failure, it is very topical that in some market failure areas there are no apartments with elevators. As the population ages, that might be a major obstacle because people that are whose mobility is impaired, they can't really live anywhere. And finally, let's have a long-term view on construction. We carried out this long-term analysis and it gave us very specific steps. And we signed a cooperation agreement between the public and private sector. And one aspect of that was agreement on quality living environment. We need to find a good solution as to how can we plan better reconstruction and rebuilding. So all of that would support the strategic choices that we've identified as issues in the Human Development Report. Thank you very much for listening and enjoy your conference.
Nägemist.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we can't ask questions for Raiko Puustusmaa, but there is one question, but somebody may know an answer. Are listed buildings part of the wave of reconstruction? Does somebody know the answer to that? Rather not.